Welcome to the Dr. Nikki Starr Show, a podcast to support you in your spiritual awakening and personal development. As a spiritual teacher, healer, and intuitive coach, my intention is to empower you to live your ultimate potential and your ultimate life. As a former medical doctor and mystic, my role is to bridge the gap between science and spirituality to support you in understanding more of your multidimensional aspects. I share on a diverse range of topics, and it's all to support your greatest becoming. My mission is to continue reaching millions of people for the healing and awakening of humankind for the creation of the new earth. Thank you for being here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. Today, I am here with Kate Shela. She is actually one of my nearest and dearest teachers that I have had on my spiritual journey. She is the co-founder of the 360 Emergence, which is an embodiment practice, and what some people, the normal people would say a dance practice, but it's so much more than that. In Kate's dance classes, I have touched deep parts of myself. She is like an MC genius. She guides us in this way that I still can hear her words beyond the class. And she has so touched my heart, my body through her way of being, her music. The years that I danced with her in LA, I just so grateful, and she's forever in my heart. And so I'm so happy to have her with us today. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you, Nikki. Lovely to be with you.
Absolutely. And today we decided to talk about bold, authentic expression, because as we know, when we're awakening the body, as we're rising our energy through the chakras, oftentimes the throat, which I always connect bold, authentic expression to, and we can talk about energetics with Kate. I feel like when our throat really comes online, this is really our time that we begin to express really authentically, really boldly, which I feel is required for us to share our mission, ourselves, our purpose with the world, because so often we are in a contorted state of being because of programming, because of our family, because of what we think we should be doing and what society says. And I feel like even though, Kate, your work isn't necessarily saying, hey, I'm here as a guide for bold, authentic expression, I feel that your embodiment is this. And how you do guide, and how I've experienced you guide is really calling that from us even more. And so I would love for you to share a bit on how you feel like the embodiment practice and authentic expression, and even you, if people see, if you're watching the video version, you have your hair that's definitely bold, and you've always been so here I am, this is me. This dress, which is my bold Dr. Nikki Starr dress with all my, it's my anime dress in celebration of today's podcast episode, which is a really important one as we're awakening more into who we truly are.
I mean, there's so many places we can go. My mind goes into a kind of octopi landscape in terms of boldness of physical expression, boldness of verbal articulation, verbal expression of what's invisible and underneath the skin into a physical dialogue and communication. I mean, you and I know that someone coming in, for instance, to a dance class for the first time is a bold move. It's a brave move. It requires so much courage. And so when I think of boldness, I also think of the absolute antithesis of that, which is profound vulnerability or shyness or social awkwardness. And I think those of us that are, I love to express physically who I am in the world because it brings me joy. And the older I get, the braver I seem to get too in terms of that expression. But I think boldness holds hands always with tenderness. And humility and a sweetness, and also a knowing that you might offend, or people might dislike you, or on the other hand, people might gravitate towards you because you're able to verbalize and articulate things that they're too shy yet to express. So I think about my timeline and the people I've met, and particularly the women that have opened doors to me that I considered very bold and brave and admired and respected. There's an encouragement that has come from being willing to be oneself. And so, you know, when I think about all these words like authentic or conscious, I always go, well, what is inauthentic? What is unconscious? And those things almost kind of inspire me more, because I know I can be all of those things simultaneously, to be braver, to be human. And that's why I've always loved to dance. It's saved me throughout my life. It's been a place of endless communication with myself and the world around me, and with other people on a dance floor, whether that's been in a club or a conscious environment for us to explore what these shapes mean. What is this alphabet? What is this language? What are these answers? What are these questions? So boldness is being brave. And being brave means you have to be vulnerable. So that's the irony of boldness. It's not just rah, you know. And I think Sinead O'Connor said something along the lines of, you know, when you're brave, it doesn't mean you're not terrified too.
Absolutely. And I feel like this even gets into what we started to talk about before we came on here, which is the medium through which so much of us are now sharing ourselves, which is through social media, through the online space, the online market, and all of these accounts and ways, which on one hand, it's a gift, right? Because now we have this medium, this platform. For me, I feel like when I was on the Fox reality show, I don't know if you knew this about me, this was back in 2014. I was like, wow, after receiving feedback from people who are watching the show, I saw like, I could just be myself. And I was, because, you know, there were cameras on us 24/7. It was like kind of like a Big Brother thing where cameras in every direction. And so you could only be yourself. You actually couldn't even be anyone else, because, you know, how many hours are you going to pretend?
Yeah.
And, you know, to the point of my quirky ways of blessing food or smudging or whatever it was, people were like, yeah, when you get up every morning and you meditate and do your yoga and all this, they're like, I'm there with you getting ready for work, and it's changed my life. And I see you eating kale and quinoa. And it's like, sometimes we don't even realize like the simplicity of just showing up as we are is enough to not only impact others, but then it's to even change the world.
Yeah.
And so now we're given this opportunity where online people think like, oh, I have to be a certain way, or I have to post like this, or I have to write this thing or whatever. When it's like, now we're given a tool and an opportunity where we can affect change just being ourselves.
Yeah.
And it does require boldness to show up, because it's vulnerable to like write something from your heart and then share it, and then not let the validation of likes or comments or this or that make us doubt how amazing it is, or that it's important anyway, or that many people are probably reading it without even commenting or liking. And so I feel that we're being invited as a humanity with this medium of social media to come forth and share who we are, because every human is like that piece of the mosaic that is the totality of humanity. And every experience is important, and every musing or thought or words of wisdom that wants to be shared, or even experience that was lived, can really affect beautiful change or opening of a heart of another. And that's human, you know? And so I feel like with the pandemic too, I know a lot of your work went online. And so that required you to even show up online even more. And so I'm curious your thoughts on, you know, because I do think more and more people want to show up boldly as they are.
especially with their social media accounts, for examples. And so what comes up for you on this topic?
I mean, I think it's so interesting how one wants to convey one's internal life in a public arena. And so for me, I know I love being in rooms with people. I love the experience. I will always do that until I leave my mortal coil. And Amber Ryan, the co-founder of the 360 Emergence, and I were really clear that in April 2020, we were going to start going online. And this was in 2019. And I was like, I'm not so sure, girl. I'm like, you know, and then lo and behold, April 2020, March 2020, when we actually started going online, everything changed. You know, the universe exploded in a whole way that none of us were expecting. The planet shifted in a radical way that we're still recalibrating from. And to my surprise, I loved being a TV star. I loved being on Zoom. I loved the container and the curation of that and the intimacy of that and the relaxation of that, knowing that also we're in a time of so much profound grief on a global scale and so much loss and confusion and terror. So it literally felt like everyone was gathering around the campfire together. And that's not only in terms of the work that we at the 360 curated for our community, but also the experiences of being in other people's curation and dropping into that field. And so I think 2020 really opened up the mycelium of what's possible, you know, and that people were reaching out to their greatest heroes and actually getting a response. Or, you know, you could be in some kind of practice or cooking pasta or doing hula hooping or in a grief circle or, you know, hanging out with your friends across the world all hours of the day. So I think the medium, you know, and that's kind of to respond in terms of social media, has been this amazing unifying field of connection, which the work that we do, you know, which I don't consider myself a spiritual teacher. I'm not interested in being a spiritual teacher. I just want to be human. I want us to get here. I want us to be able to have skills and tools that are going to get us through, hopefully, the next day, or even in a moment of landing, grounding, and anchoring into presence, because it's wild out there. You know, it's wild in here. And so how do we find that tethering? And yet I'm pretty old school. You know, all my training has been pretty old school of like, you're hands-on people and you're hands with people and you're smelling people. And I said only last week when I was teaching, you know, during Zoom time, we were missing people's smells and the farts in the room and the bad body odor. And, oh, there's that person that I actually really don't kind of like and they activate me, and, or here are my peeps. And so I think wherever I am, I'm aware of the radical opposite being just as good or just as unpleasant, and embracing it all. And I think that's also maturing and appreciating that I'm talking. The tick has disappeared, but I'm now in the talk. And so how do I show up with all my heart in any given moment? And really it's down to on a bus, in a supermarket, walking down the street, teaching 150 people at Soho Dance at the side of the 405 freeway in Los Angeles, or in in the middle of a jungle. And that's what's important for me about my boldness now. It's about how authentic or inauthentic can I be in a congruent way wherever I am. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned that it's like, you mentioned like that as you're getting older, you notice you're bolder and like you're saying, this maturity piece. And I feel like for me, it's been like the dark nights of the souls where I get to the like, I don't effing care anymore. That has been the moments where I can then just really do what I want, share what I want, say what I want. without like needing to conform to some kind of box.
Hmm.
And it's been like the consistency of always showing up. And that's why I've actually appreciated the social media and platform. I too feel that my work is best in person. And I feel like when I was in LA, that was like the height of everything. And so much evolved from the classes I would teach and share, because there's, even though you can feel energy online and it's independent of time and space, there's still something different about coming face to face with people. And so I definitely miss that. And at the same time, there's this level of protection in a way that sometimes I think can help us to be bolder when it comes to online or social media, because when I'm writing something in my bed, in this really vulnerable space where I feel so safe to just open my heart, and there's no interruption. No one's trying to like get into or like respond before I'm even finished saying what I want to say. And so that has really helped me, I feel, to show up bigger and bolder online, and I guess just in general, right? Like I decided fast. I decided to like show up more and more and more. Whereas of course I still appreciate the in-person space. And I'm wondering, because for me it's always been like the pain of the dark night of the soul, and then that moment of not giving a shit that I was just like, all right, now I'm just going to really share what I want to say. And then like those posts have always been like the most powerful. Like sometimes almost if I'm a little frustrated by humanity, then I'm like, share this. And people like love the rawness and the realness. I've noticed in class too. I remember, like, as you said, I noticed you'll talk about those parts, like the yucky parts. And like you said, like I miss the BO. I miss being triggered by that person. And I think I've said this to you before, but there was a class that we did in Topanga one time, and you were just talking about like being bored or things being boring. And you just kept being like boring, 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 boring. And it was just so brilliant, like cracked open this part of myself that was just a little stagnant and like a little,
Yeah.
And so I don't even know where I'm going with this. It's just more of like, sometimes we have to go into these parts of ourselves to, and then it's like from there even more of the boldness is born.
Yeah.
You know, it's like these processes we go through, and I feel like you're so good with your wordsmith too, of like helping us get to those places.
Well, I mean, I do consider myself kind of an embodiment plumber. And it's really, so in that way, I think the work, and I really want to say what I loved about being the TV star in Zoom, and what I love about it is that there is such a profound intimacy that happens too. And that's the piece that I left out. So thank you for picking that thread up there, that I realized, wow, basically great things can happen everywhere. It just depends on what your intention and your focus is. And so in those days of Zoom, where it started off with like 500 people online, and then, obviously that changed over time. But what can happen one-on-one across the world in a, one-on-one seership meeting with somebody or with a group of 30 is really, if one's heart's engaged, anything is possible. And I so appreciate like how elders now can be in contact with family members across the world through this interface. So there's a profound gift for magic to happen anywhere, and it has specific flavors and skill sets. And yeah, I am someone that like, I don't mind that first pancake. I don't mind difficulty. I don't mind dissonance. It's not saying I'm wanting to cultivate it, because, fundamentally I think we all want to bring more harmony and dignity and reverence and peace and ease and kindness to all situations. But if one is in a situation where that is dissonance is alive and well, how does one address it so that everyone, number one, can go, oh yeah, I feel like this. It's number one, natural. It's okay. It's maybe a little bit unsafe, but there's safety present. And how can we acknowledge it? And whether that's boredom or outrage at what's happening in the political field, or in terms of social justice, or, sexual politics, or the fact that B12 might be banned from your doctor in the United States of America, like whatever it is that we're clocking, where, you know, on a polemic political level, how does one address that in the body? That's what I'm curious about. Like, how do you keep tending to your own plumbing system and your well-being? And, you know, you as a doctor know what I'm talking about. And so that's very literal. How do I take care of my bones, my joints, my muscles, my ligaments, my organs, my skin, my blood, my heart, my breath? And then also, how do I take care of the invisible aspect of my health that is affected if I'm like furious consistently by Fred? How does that affect my, you know, the bile in my liver and my gallbladder? And then how does that affect my speech? And then how does that affect my creativity? So it's, my job feels like I'm a plumber. And I want to create spaces for people to get intimate with themselves without judging themselves if they're ill or unwell or they've been miserable for a decade for whatever reason. Because, you know, where I rub up against the bold kind of punk vibe is, hey, whatever you're going through is what you're going through and there's nothing wrong with it. And I think a lot in our worlds, there's so much judgment and criticism around, you've been feeling depressed for 10 years. And you've tried probably everything under the sun and something hasn't shifted. And I know that's true for all of us. We all have our places where no matter what we're doing or not doing, we still feel that way. And so for me, I'm like, I'm made of certain ingredients and hard wiring. And no matter what I do, I can still struggle. And I can have practices that help me out of those struggles, even temporarily, you know. And the thing that's been consistent for me is moving my body and dancing. And mostly it creates that change also when I'm in a room, at least with one other person, because the synchronism shifts, or my attention shifts out of my own self-obsessed misery or difficulty, you know. And the minute you're with someone else, there's a possibility for something else. Like, two people are having a conversation in a room, so I can at least listen to one of us, even if I've been listening to myself for 1,000 years. And, you know, you and I know that when you get people in a room moving, lives change, whether that's basketball, conscious dance, ecstatic dance, the disco, tap. It just, you can't stay the same. It's impossible. It's impossible. And that's why people are so terrified of actually coming into a room where you're going to be asked to move your elbow or down dog or back bend, because you're going to see the world from a different perspective. But hopefully, if we get enough people moving in whatever way they want to move, then transformation can happen inside, because it is all an inside job, unfortunately. You know, I mean, yeah, if I have a nice dress on the outside, that's going to change things on the inside. But if I still feel like I'm an ugly hippopotamus, no dress is going to change me feeling like I'm not an ugly hippopotamus.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have always felt that high level of acceptance inside of your spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel, even as a healing arts practitioner, that is the role I feel of the practitioners, to hold that sacred witness space where it's safe to express every part of ourselves. And it's true what you say about being the embodiment plumber, because as a medical doctor who then went on to train all in the energetic anatomy arts, you know, I really complemented my medical degree with the energetics of it. And, you know, to really understand we actually have multiple energy pathways that run different types of energy. And the moment there's stagnation in anything, that's actually what creates disease.
Yeah.
It's an energy problem disease.
Yeah.
So it's true what you say. The moment you start moving the body, however you move it, even if it is the elbow, like that could actually help to open up the channels higher up where there's whatever pain. Yeah. And even emotional pain, like when we have trapped emotions, that creates disease. And the process to clear that out, it's strange how in our lives every day, if we look at the masses and we look at the schedule of people, it's like there's not this time, this dedicated time to clean the gunk out that's so necessary for energy hygiene, which is essentially imperative for health and happiness. And so, and I also feel that that's part of where the stuckness even around expression is. Like if you have all of these trapped emotions, like your entire field is distorted, that you're not even responding authentically because you're trying to contort. There's this thing going on that you're not wanting to address, etc. And so that embodiment piece, the movement piece, I feel is the thing that, especially with dance and anything that's moving our hips, that's activating more of our life force energy and pumping it around the body. From an energetic perspective, dance for me has been like, you know, I stopped doing yoga and really moved my practice to dance because of the body needs to move how it wants to move, not the way I'm going to tell it to move, to really, in my opinion, even though of course yoga has its technology and it will absolutely open things and clear things. And then there was like this other level I was exploring through dance. And it's true, if I dance by myself on the beach, it's not the same as going to a class, because it's like in the mirror of the other, it's like, oh, that's coming up now. And okay, like, okay, this really feels good. I'm opening here because of whatever's going on with our energies together. And why there it is this microcosm, internal, external, the microcosm within the macrocosm. I've always found, and even the way you guide it, it's like the dance floor was always the microcosm of what's happening in life, you know? And then by whatever we work out there is going to absolutely affect then what we're experiencing in our everyday life. And I hope even, you know, I didn't really know what the hope of the podcast is, but as we're sharing, it's like, I really would love people to just get out and move their bodies a bit more in spaces where it's safe to go to the parts that you maybe even been avoiding. And that's where the magic will be, to then, as a result, support you in greater, bold expression authentically of what's true.
I mean, you talk, you're bringing up so many exciting points for me, because not only do I feel like I'm an embodiment plumber, I also feel like I'm a public health servant, you know, and I see that more and more of, you know, 30 plus years of teaching and holding space and curating environments for basically to have people get what they need. You know, my job is really about call and response. My job, in a way, is, can I create a brave enough space that individuals will drop into their own sense of safety? Because you can't promise people it's going to be a safe space. As much as we want to, random things happen at any point, but we can hopefully, I can hopefully, with my intention, create a place where people are going to be able to find a way in, to recycle, to actually go, I don't know how to move. I'm shy. I'm not a dancer. You know, and I think that's the other thing, is that this has got nothing to do with being a dancer. This is about, you are a human being, and no matter what you are doing, even when you're sleeping, you're moving. So, you know, yes, to be in a room with professional dancers and teaching them, it's the opposite. It's like, stop performing, stop being an affectation, stop getting it right, because so much of our culture is, what do I look like? And for me, the work is like, what does it feel like? And what does this want to say to you? It's a communication, so that basically we can get the seasons of our lives moving, the fluids moving, we can recycle the shit, we can press delete on our own computer and just go bye-bye. And also then like download some really fabulous apps of, I love myself, I'm the fucking bomb, I'm gorgeous, or I'm brave, or, oh, could I do that? Just, you know, so the thing for me is that it's a public health service that needs to be funded by the governments on a global level. And cross-culturally, we need more and more embodiment practitioners offering spaces with amazing music that are grounded and anchored and safe and embodied with someone's life experience, to hold people to do the good work that has no dogma. You know, the dance has no dogma. The dance is, you know, belongs to no one. You can't control nature. And actually, as much as we'd like to think, you can't really control people. And you can to a certain degree, and then things just break open. And that's also what's happening on a global level, is that people are going, like time is up in so many places. You know, and in the indigenous ancient sacred ways that have returned into the cross-cultural global story. And how do we work with them in a modern way? You know, when we are living in flats on our own and we're not living in communities, and it's not even about, I'm talking about a spiritual community, when we're not living in communities where we know the neighbors in our apartment block. So for me, the dance is the metaphor of like, well, how do we get connected inside and out? And knowing that we're all going to die. Like, that's inevitable. So how can we actually enjoy our lives whilst we're in preparation for our death? So that, you know, that death is the kind of, like, once you're dead, okay, ciao. How do you live up to this moment of living well until you get to that moment? And so for me, that's always what's been fascinating. Those questions are fascinating to me, because they feel very human.
Yeah, and I want to validate what you're saying about the piece of like, it's not even really dancing. Like, I know I've said to my beloved who knew nothing about that realm, and I was just like, no, I actually need to go for my mental health. It's actually like my therapy. And then I also do like to dance in places where you do dance more normal. But I'm like, no, I just need to roll around the floor and be able to be really weird. And like, that's why I need to go to, like, you know, there's so many containers now, whether it's ecstatic dance or 5 rhythms, you know, and you develop the 360. And so those spaces, it's like really where we can just, even if we're a good dancer, that's the space where we can just go. And the things that have come out or what I've done, I'm like, I don't even know how I access this, but it is the technology.
Yeah.
It's a technology because, like I said, our ancestors, they danced around the fire.
Yeah.
This has been done for eons and eons. Music was created by whatever it could be created by. And it got lost in modern day society, which then people resorted to talking about their problems. And I know that this is also the way that Gabrielle, what's her last name? Roth, that developed
Gabrielle Roth, who created the 5 rhythms.
Heard the story about her being at Esalen and being like, come on, everyone, just shut up and let's just start moving the body. Because it was like, why are we reliving? And by now, even sometimes about therapy, it's like, why do you keep reliving your traumas, talking about them? Like, let's move it, let's integrate it, let's clear whatever's stuck in there, and then move on, reclaim that power. And then now it's time to express and live and be in a new way. And so embodiment practices are so, so important. And may all of you attend. So Kate, you're still doing the online classes, right?
And coming back to it now. You know, I've been a road woman for the last couple of years. So in 2025, the intention is to really come back in an online presence and be more anchored in one place. Because when one is pollinating the planet, there's only so many arms one can extend to. But I think also it's you know, and obviously the folks that are listening to this know the languaging of what we're talking about. They know the journeying, the time travel, that happens when you move your body or you step into devotional practice, whatever that is. You know, I'm very committed to a sitting practice. I love my yoga and my Tai Chi, but I also just love going to a club, and magic can happen anywhere. Like AirPods down, walking down the street, waiting for the bus, waiting for the train. But when one steps into a container that has an intention, and it's a communal gathering, then everyone is talking simultaneously without talking, but talking through the body. And then there are those moments where you can feel a room synchronize like a murmuring of birds, where everyone is getting an answer. Or if someone is in the room seeking, that suddenly they can have the devotional practice of dancing to a hardcore 138 beats per minute groove house track. And an answer can descend because actually there's been the beat that supported a breakthrough physically. So for me, it's the music, it's the community, it's the guidance, it's the container, it's the really anchoring into physical experience when miracles happen. And I see that time and time and time again, to the person that's been there 10,000 times and to a person that's just coming once. You know, and it's often folks who are really like socially awkward, or this is so weird, or this is hippie, or this is spiritual, and I'm not, you know, and it's none of that. It's like, here's a piece of music, and how does that touch you? You know, I mean, and suddenly someone's crying for no reason, or remembering something, and they can redo, or they can move it through, or they can reclaim, or they can basically, excuse my French, but say like, fuck you, or thank you. And so that's what I love about the dance. And as a practitioner who is continuously an apprentice to devotion of dancing and moving, like the magic, the understanding, the feng shui, the neural pathways, the serotonin, the forgiveness, the thou shalt not pass. So I just love it as a direct appointment to the doctor inside of me, the shaman inside of me, the wizard inside of me, the kid inside of me. You know, I get to meet all aspects of my humanity. And that's what I love about my job, really, is that everyone in this room, you can be exactly who you are archetypally in the way that you need it. And it's not on me. It's like, my job is to be the public health servant in service to your health. I don't know where you need to go, and I don't assume I know where you need to go. But may there be cohesion. May there be moments of rapture and ecstasy. May there be moments also of, I'm here. Oh, I'm here. I'm here. Because I do think many folks are just learning how to get into this technology. And that's why maturing is so beautiful, because you get humbled by injury or hormonal changes or sicknesses. And then you go, oh, thank you. Right? You know, as a doctor, when people get sick, often they're like, oh my God, I didn't even know I wasn't taking care of myself. I didn't even know. We're so removed.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've even learned in these years how the new form of the Holy Grail to really catalyze people into spiritual awakening and transformation has been through the form of disease. Like, how many stories do you hear that people had whatever stage cancer, they radically transformed their lives, they moved, they quit their job, they became so healthy, cured it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, because sometimes if we're not listening, it's the pain, unfortunately, that will push people to change their lives and change their habits and their ways of being, and to really look within and take radical responsibility for what they're creating in their life, including health. Like, we create ourselves to be healthy or unhealthy. We are creating everything. And like you said, the humbling of when the body becomes unwell, you can't ignore it. It will take your full consciousness and focus if you have a strong pain, if there's a disease of sorts. And yeah, and so I, you know, as you know, I left Western medicine because I didn't feel the cure was there. It's a whole system that will collapse, and I feel like it's already happening.
Yeah.
But now we're seeing how we can empower ourselves to be good tenders of the garden of our body and to take care of ourselves. And it is, for me, really about energy hygiene. And that's why I love the dance practice, because so much of it is about energetically moving things and making everything is flowing well. And any of the practices you mentioned, like the Qigong, the Tai Chi, the yoga, you know, I swim every day, even in winter. It's cold now because this is another process that clears energetically, grounds us, brings us in. The cold water brings us into our body, makes us take that. And so really anything that gets us more into our body is going to promote our health.
Yeah.
And with that, of course, just naturally the expression comes online more. That and I feel like that's what I mean by the authentic expression, because you're a clearer channel for your spirit, your soul to be embodied, and you can hear without the noise and the junk and everything that's distorting the field.
And I also, I mean, there is something so beautiful about the body not agreeing with you, or the body taking you places, or the psyche taking you places, because it's a bold intervention from the inside going, oi, oi. And that's, I mean, that's something that I have loved witnessing over my lifetime, going, oh, someone has got ill. But actually, it's been a call to attention. It's been a call to presence. It's been a call to pausing. And those levels of radical changes have to come, because I think as human beings, we're so stubborn. We're so stubborn. And even, you know, everyone I know in the change making world, or the healing world, or the health promotion world, you know, we're all struggling with our own challenges behind this lens, behind our own curtain. And so I think there's something so beautiful about life coming in and interrupting your plan. You know, like my grandmother always used to say, you know, the God laughs at anyone who makes plans, you know, like it's so easy to dismiss that. And I think it takes time to appreciate, because most of us have not been brought up going, honey, your body is your best friend. Honey, I want you to listen to your body. Like I think around, you know, early periods, and honey, when you know, it's okay for you to rest. Or honey, the first day of your period, you don't have to go to school. You know, all of these things. Or like, what does this mean? Or honey, you know, when you start bleeding, this means that you are now welcome to the world of potentially being a mother. There's a responsibility now and how do you tend to that? And so I think the younger generation are getting such a different education around these things, which is like, you know, my young friends who are, you know, in their teens, and just they're loving of their body, because their parents have been pretty much brought up on no education around self-care. Our parents and grandparents, like, they didn't have no time for that. But then if we go further back, yes, there was the indigenous ways of ceremony and cleansing and cleaning, because it was understood that one person sick in the community made the whole community sick. So I think there's a return to that, but there are millions of people that have no access to a weekly class and, I don't know, the local hall where they can just like, let's just delete the garbage. You know? And so for me, it's so many places, because my biggest fear is that people walk away from these kinds of conversations feeling like they're not good enough or they're not doing enough, because everyone I know across the field is being challenged with their time, with their money, with their resources. So, you know, like, what simple ways can we support people to feel some sense of kindness towards themselves, you know, rather than the push, the patriarchal push that has told all of us, you are not doing enough. You should be ashamed of yourself. Like, well, whoa.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a born and bred New Yorker. And so the flex was like, how busy are you? This is like a measure of like a great day. You know, I got all these things done.
Yeah.
Now it's like, oh, great. There's just one call today on the schedule. You know, like the relaxation, the spaciousness is more of the flex now. That's the goal. You know, how to create more ease and spaciousness with, you know, even as and I think it's a gift in this time, we're creating our own businesses and we're creating life how we desire it to be. So we can create family first businesses, or, you know, similar to me, I also take the first few days of my period off now. If I have client calls or anything, I reschedule them.
Yeah.
It's like, I really need to be with myself. If I have any form of pain, I'm sorry, I can't, you know?
Yeah.
And it's so different from like what I had to push through in medical school and the hours and like the coffee I drank. And it's like, now I don't drink any coffee or caffeine because I really want to take care of my nervous system so well. That might be extreme for some people, but like for me, like,
Yeah.
I hear everything you're saying. And yeah, and I think that's great that you're going to bring back the classes in 2025. I definitely recommend you all try that. The classes
Aww.
available. And So Kate, we're going to include all of your links and everything and all the information of how people can connect with you. But just for those who are listening, if you want to let people know your website and where they can find you on social media, that would be great.
So the body of work that I teach is called the 360 Emergence, and it's an embodiment practice that, is just so delicious. After having been a 5 rhythms practitioner and teacher for 25 years, it's so exciting to really have co-created a body of work with Amber Ryan that is really a call and response to get people in their physical experience, and through that the ritualistic aspects that come from repetition of moving one's body in all kinds of extraordinary ways to phenomenal DJing. And now we're running an apprenticeship, so we have facilitators around the world that are offering it. And my handle on Instagram is the real Kate Shela, Shela. And I also offer one-on-one seership and guidance, or as we call it in this time, mentorship. But really it's about, I think my passion is, how can I support you becoming more of who you are? Because really, I think that's what every human is seeking. How can I just be me and enjoy the being me in all the ways that I am me, the really hard ways and the really beautiful ways? So I'm passionate about recycling energy and supporting people in their process so that they can keep stepping forward in their boldness, but as much in their vulnerability. That is that's my umami place. That's what gives me a lot of joy.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And so if you're wanting to hear some more from Kate, we'll see you inside of the bonus content. And otherwise, we'll see you in the next show. Thank you so much for being here, Kate. Thank you, everyone.
And wishing you happy holidays, everybody. May your end of 2024 be one of beauty and grace and kindness to you and yours.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. Please like this podcast and share it with anyone you feel would benefit. Subscribe to the podcast to receive bonus content, and remember, every Monday the video version goes live on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being on the ascension path with me and for doing this great work.